Our next speaker is an activist for peace and justice. It's my pleasure to ask Sister Karen Rodman to speak to us.
Thanks. Alaikum. It's indeed my honor to be here with you today, but first let me say that my thoughts are very much with all of you who have families and friends in Kashmir. Let me also say that we are all Kashmiri until Kashmir has self-determination. Also, let me say, as we are on the eve of Aberdeen, that every day is Ashura, that every land is Karbala, and that every time we stand for human rights is Aberdeen. It is appropriate that we are here today remembering this story that has not only persisted over 14 centuries, but continues to resonate with us here today, even as the powers of the 21st century pull out all the stops to silence this message of liberation and resistance. What do we want for Kashmir? What do we want for Kashmir? What do we want for Kashmir? This story is enduring. It provides humanity with hope. It provides us with hope beyond the present, a hope that is realized when our actions speak truth to power. Let us remember that as we make our way to the polling booth on Monday. And let us remember as we stand for liberation and for justice for the people of Palestine, of Lebanon, of Syria, of Egypt, of Haiti, of Venezuela, of Chile, of everywhere that people are standing for liberation and justice. 75 days, 75 long days and long nights of lockdown and of terror in occupied Kashmir by close to 1 million Indian troops. Shame. Shame. Canadians should be outraged about the lockdown, about the torture, about the kidnapping of at least 13,000 young boys and teens. And about the revoking of Article 35A. Canadians should be outraged because this revocation has opened the floodgates for yet another 21st century settler colonial project, a project to shift the democracy and take the resources by moving the occupiers' own people into Jammu and Kashmir. Shame! Shame! Essentially a project that is mirroring on the ground the illegal Jewish settlements of the Zionist Israeli military project in Palestine. It doesn't surprise us, of course, that India is by far the largest importer of Israeli arms sales. But where are our Canadian leaders? Where are our political leaders, even as this is the final weekend before the election? Where are our leaders from our faith communities, our human rights organizations, and civil society in regard to condemning this blatant violation of human rights? It seems like we have a lot of work to do. Yes, shame. In Canada, the special economic measures legislation supposedly holds Canada to a higher standard. This legislation was put in place so Canada can and is required to put sanctions on countries even when the United Nations has not done so if there are systemic violations of human rights. Most often it is misused. It is hard to believe that there is not systemic violations of human rights in Kashmir. We would call for sanctions. Also, as a high signatory of the Fourth Geneva Convention, Canada is accountable under international law to ensure that all aspects of that convention are upheld. In other words, to not hold India accountable is for our government to be complicit with war crimes. It is on this basis that Canadian domestic law and international accountability that Just Peace Advocates, an organization here in Canada, has been calling out under Al-Haq, Palestinian organization's campaign on Gaza 2020 for sanctions until at least the blockade is lifted for the Palestinians and the Palestinians in Gaza. And so it is on this basis that I would send a clear message, that we need to send a clear message immediately after the election to whoever is elected, but especially also to opposition leaders, that we do not accept silence and we do not accept inaction in regard to Kashmir. We call on sanctions on Israel and on India until their 21st century settler colonial projects are not only halted but reversed. And we call for sanctions until the war crimes are ended. For Kashmir and Jammu, that could be until self-determination is realized through a referendum that was promised by our own Canadian leadership over 70 years ago at the United Nations Security Council. We have accountability, we have responsibility. And so let me just close by saying that it is indeed an honor for me to be able to join with you, the people of Kashmir here in Canada, and of all the friends of Kashmir that are here, as we send a very strong message that we will not stand for war crimes. We are all Kashmiri until Kashmir is free. From Turtle Island to Kashmir, from Kashmir to Palestine, we say no justice, no justice, no justice. What do we want for Kashmir? What do we want for Kashmir? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Brothers and sisters, we have several speakers, so I will limit my comments in between. But just I want to say, a human right is a human right is a human right. All the people on earth deserve the same treatment and the same support.